Hi, you guys. This is Rachel Kirkland, the Modern Shaman, and thank you for joining me for some question and answer time on the Modern Shaman YouTube channel. So if you are new to me, feel free to subscribe and kind of get connected on my website. There are lots of cool people that are also connected on Facebook when we do our Facebook Live chats. So there's lots of ways to connect if this is what you're into. Okay, so let me jump into the question. And I have my headphones on today because it's summertime, my kids are home, and they're right outside my office playing the board game Sorry. Do y'all remember that from back when we were kids? So like every few minutes they're like, sorry, you know, when they move, you have to go all the way back to the beginning. If you remember that game. Okay, so here we go. Hopefully you won't hear that. You'll just hear me on these headphones. This question was sent to me through Facebook Messenger. And it says, Rachel, I have a question for your YouTube channel. I know that anxiety is not always a sign that someone has low self-esteem, even though it is often misconceived as such. For example, a person can have high self-esteem and yet have anxiety because they have a problem to resolve and have no more solutions to solve it. So my question is, how does one turn off the habitual trigger to react with anxiety so that in the moment it doesn't interfere with life? Turning off your trigger of anxiety, the anxiety trigger. Okay. Good question. Very relevant, I think. So I'm going to tune in, just kind of center myself. When I say tune in, I'm not doing anything that you can't do. I'm just centering myself. I'm getting very present in this moment, very focused on this question, and kind of setting a very clear intention to answer with clarity, sincerity, succinct answers, that kind of thing. And I'm opening a space that if Spirit wants to say something or show me something through my psychic senses, that they do so during that time. If it's relevant. Okay, so with this, just kind of connecting on my own, I feel like Spirit would like me to go kind of broad with this. Obviously to answer your question, but they're wanting me to go through various techniques, okay? So there's a lot of different ways to work through your triggers. And anxiety is just one. Like this is, you know, what she mentioned in her question. But everybody has different triggers. And by triggers, I just mean things that kind of set you off, right? Things that get you to a point where you're like, yeah, this is the human experience, isn't it? It's the drama. Triggers that kind of suck you from your high vibe in space into this like, I'm going to have to deal with this stuff. Everyone has them. Okay, I don't care, you know, even if you're Thich Nhat Hanh or someone who seems to be in perfect, you know, the Dalai Lama in perfect constant connection. They are, but there are still things. They're living in a human body, and there are still things that bring up memories, bring up emotional feelings. They may be faster in their response of how to deal with it, but that's just a level of processing, and you can get there. Just as they can. Okay, so turning off the anxiety trigger. The first thing I would say is you can literally just choose to acknowledge that it is no longer a trigger for you. This is called spiritual bypassing. A lot of people are like against it. Like, no, you're going to have to go through it. You have to work through it. You have to pull up the, you know, the reason it's coming up for you, which may be relevant. For some people, that is relevant for you to go down the route where it's like you got to dig up the mud. For others, there is that option. It's like, I always go there first because it's like if I can just flip the coin to the other side, it's a lot faster than having to like dig through all the various, you know, other versions of me and go through all this past and pull up, you know, where it first happened that I dealt with anxiety and how I developed it in my childhood. If I can just flip the coin and I can vibrationally align with the fact that it's no longer relevant for me, that it doesn't exist for me, then that's the fastest, most efficient way to go. Okay? Now, if that's not reachable vibrationally, meaning it doesn't feel true, you don't believe it, you don't have a sense of alignment with it, and by alignment, I mean you fully believe it, okay? If there's a hesitancy in there and you're like, I don't know if it'll work, then you're not aligned. It's not relevant for you right now, and maybe you need some scaffolding or some different options, okay? But that's the first one I would say, would be to tell yourself and see if you can align with the fact that this anxiety, this trigger, is no longer active in your life. Like, it just doesn't exist. It's just not there. And whenever you feel that, and if it starts to come up, whatever it is that someone says or whatever it is that starts creating a feeling of anxiety or not being able to solve a problem, in that moment, if you just say, this doesn't exist for me anymore. This is not relevant anymore. I don't have these feelings anymore. It's just over and done. It's done. If you set that pattern and you can align with it, it will work completely. Okay, so if that's not relevant for you, you can also do what a lot of kind of gurus, a lot of those kind of non-attachment, or like Eckhart Tolle, or I never know how to pronounce his name, or a lot of different gurus and bodhisattvas and different people have said the whole aspect of separating yourself from your emotional body. So when things arise, anxiety, you identify it as an emotion. You identify it, and the fact that you're able to identify it states the point that it is not you. It is an identifiable emotion. Okay, if you're able to look at something, then you are able to realize that you are the one looking at it. You are not it. Okay, and just that sense of panning out a little bit detaches from the kind of underlying living space of emotions. Basically, it kind of like deactivates that energy. Okay, imagine if it just kind of like turns that light off, or turns the switch on a dimmer light, to where it's no longer active in your physical body. You don't feel that sort of like, acid in your stomach anymore. You're not feeling that angst energy, because you're able to identify like, oh, that's just a trigger. That's just a feeling right there that feels like anxiety. That's wild. That's what anxiety feels like. There it is. If I ever need to know what anxiety is, that's what it feels like. I can identify it now. I can identify that situation is one that makes people commonly feel anxious. That's what anxious feels like. It's not me. I'm the one watching. I'm the one identifying. If I can identify it, then it is not me. It is a separate thing, a separate emotion. So that distance, that panning out, I always call it panning out like a camera lens. I used to teach photography. So, and in my visual clairvoyance, that's always what it looks like. It's like I just come out of body a little bit enough to detach from the experience of the body, or experience of that emotional impact. So if you can do that, it just deactivates it. Okay, if you do it more and more and more, there's no fear of being in that anxiety. That's another thing. It's like when we identify triggers, sometimes when we start fearing the trigger, like, oh no, this is going to be horrible, or oh, this is a trigger of mine, I'm going to have to deal with this, oh, here it comes, which amplifies it, right? So that form of detachment, of identifying, this is just anxiety. That's what anxiety feels like. I am not anxious. I am the observer of an emotion called anxiety. I'm observing it. I'm observing what that feels like. I'm observing that human experience. I'm observing that's what it looks like when a little human has anxiety. Wow. That's interesting. I have no form of attachment to that. Okay? That's one way. So another way would be just in the physical realm. If this is very physical for you and visceral, meaning anxiety is like that a lot, or fears, they become very palpable. They set off your stomach. You get acid reflux, or your bowels are all jacked up, or you have heart palpitations or panic attacks, or whatever it may be. If it becomes like that to you, kind of the third little way to work through a trigger like that would be to physically work through it. So breathe. And I have taught this technique before about breathing, and I don't know why. It's very simple, but it comes up a lot from Spirit to get very tangible with your breath. So the one I've used before as an example is if you've ever brushed your teeth with a really strong mint toothpaste, or you've eaten like an Altoid or like a really strong mint or gum or whatever, and your mouth is like full of this like fresh breath feeling, right? You want to breathe to where you feel that fresh, oxygenated air going all the way down your throat, all the way down your spine, like your spine is a straw. It's a pranic tube of energy, of that chi, life force energy. So you're wanting to feel this air, fresh, oxygenated air, go all the way down your spine, all the way down through your stomach, into your tailbone. And then when you inhale, you want to feel it coming all the way back up, to where it's almost like that mint flavor. It's like you can almost taste or feel that like open, cold air going all the way through your body. When you focus that much on your breath, it moves you out of the energy of this constriction, right? Anxiety is a constricting energy. So it constricts your muscles. Fear is also a constricting energy. It moves you out of the form of constriction, and without even realizing it, just being very pointed and having to focus on, oh, can I feel that mint flavor? Where does the mint flavor go? It's got to go all the way down to my tailbone, as if it's trying to hit that spot. And it's like ding, and then it can come back up. But you want to stay with it until you can literally almost like taste the mint all the way through your body. Okay, if you get very focused on your breath like that for a while, and there's lots of breath techniques, but for me, that one has been effective with clients. If you can stay with it that long, then you move yourself out of that moment of constriction. Just takes a minute to align with that breath, and then you're not in the energy of constriction, and you're not as tense and tight and anxious. And so literally in that moment of life, you are able to release, relax, and move on to the next thing. Like almost like kind of pick something else that distracts you. Okay, you can also, that's why people like throw cold water on their face or jump in a cold pool or something. They physically jumpstart their energy out of that angst energy or that tension or constriction of the muscles into something else. You can kind of shock your muscular system, your nervous system, your energetic body into that. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. Okay, the last thing I'll say, number 4 way that you can kind of help yourself with these triggers is if you do want to work through it. If you do feel like this is coming up too often for me, and I feel like there's something stuck in there that's just, it needs to come out, okay? If you need a form of release, then I would go back and kind of look at where is this stemming from, okay? It may be a past life, like you might need to do a past life regression or a hypnosis session, or it may be something from your childhood that you know very well how it started. It's just like you don't like to face it or you don't want to go there. But if it keeps habitually coming up like that and it feels relevant for you to look at it, then I would look at it, okay? And it doesn't have to be like some long thing where you're going to have to go to counseling for months and months and months to work through this issue. It can be in a day, it can be in a few hours, it can be a complete release in that way. You can, if you do know the beginning of that energy, where it started for you, you can pull up that, just like you're pulling up like a big turnip or something underground. You can pull it up, look at that bulb of the turnip or whatever has been underneath the ground all this time that you haven't wanted to face, whether it's a memory, a person, whatever, fear that you have. And then you can get it out. You can write it out. You can write it onto a piece of paper. I have another video on the alchemy of paper. Paper is very grounding and transformative in terms of being able to transfer energy onto another thing. It takes it out of the body, basically. And trees, since paper is made from trees, it's a very grounding energy. It's absorbent, just like water into the earth. So it does absorb your energy. As long as you put everything that you remember, all that you have energetically into writing it. Like you're just like, you're just writing. At that point, you can burn it to release it and blow it away. You can do one like a fire ceremony with it. You can also scream it out. Get in a place that feels very free, and you can primal scream. You can activate that energy or that memory, and then scream or yell or hurl or throw up or spit, like literally like purge it out of the body. This is why a lot of people do have a lot of healing with purging, with different medicinals that kind of make you throw up. A lot of plant energies and things make you purge, and there's a sense of getting a deep, deep, deep healing emotionally from literally getting that physical energy out of the body. Okay, so that's always an option too. Scream it, write it, throw it up, get it out of that body, and then know that that trigger is done, that whatever started it is now out and is no longer part of your experience. And give thanks and know that it's done. Yeah, I think those 4 are good, right? You can either emotionally flip the coin right away, say this is no longer relevant for me. You can separate out of the body, separate from the emotional body, and almost like not have a sense of connection to it, detach there and watch it. You can physically breathe and let go of some of that constriction, or you can purge it out, write it out, scream it out, literally get that little ball of energy out of the body. I hope that's helpful to you. Mwah. Love you guys.